Now, going to the main thing, clinical manifestations, signs and symptoms. Menstrual abnormalities has to be the one because patients come to you because they are having this amenorrhea. I mentioned why the patient is having amenorrhea. Oligomenorrhea. Second is hypomenorrhea. Hypomenorrhea when the patient is bleeding for less than 2 days. That is known as hypomenorrhea. Third, as I said, lack of cyclical progesterone. Unopposed estrogen is there, and when it is shed, then it doesn't stop. That is known as dysfunctional uterine bleeding. And when this occurs, patient at times feel that patient if you don't diagnose the patient properly and if you don't do the sonography at the proper time, you will think the patient is having fibroid or something. You go in a different direction. No, ask the history to the patient whether scanty menses were there previously, whether she was having weight gain, and all the things which you are going to discuss now, whether she's having acne, hirsutism. Don't go to fibroid. And when the menses get over on day 5, please do a sonography, please do the hormonal test. In fibroid you will not find PCOS, you will find the fibroid. You will not find altered hormonal levels. So please don't do blunders. Now, infertility. Why infertility will occur? Ovulation is only not occurring. Ovum is only not forming. Ovum is not coming in the fallopian tube. How is the patient going to conceive when there is no ovum? Patients don't understand this. Patients think that we are having PCOS, that is no, the main ovum is only not coming. So if you are having proper full blown PCOS, how are you going to conceive? You should work on ovulation in PCOS. Seeing this, another thing is very possible as seen clinically also. At certain times, for example, 6 months there was anovulation in a PCOS patient. 7th month of a cycle, there was ovulation, which is known as breakthrough ovulation. For example, there was a follicle which was growing since lot of months, and धीरे slowly it became the Graafian follicle over the months. And then in this cycle, somehow the hormones became little bit favorable. LH was there, and a Graafian follicle ruptured, and the ovum came out. And then at that time only, the patient, or around that time, patient had unprotected intercourse, and then the patient conceived. So such patients will come to you, doctor. You said I'm not going to conceive at all, and now I have conceived. So this is the beauty. This happens. There are patients of PCOS who don't take any treatment, and luckily, if they conceive in these cycles, they have children, and not only one children, they have 2 to 3 children. I've seen patients who are having proper PCOD, not taking any treatment, and they conceive. These are the patients who don't take stress now, they conceive. If you take stress along with PCOS and not taking treatment also, then they don't conceive. I've seen this mostly in the people who are like in the who come in the poor category. Not no offense, but I'm just saying this is what I've found. They have no tension regarding. They know that they don't think so much. They don't Google, na. So they think, yeah, हाँ, something is there. Even if we explain everything like this nicely to them, जैसे कुछ तो हुआ है पर जाने दो, कुछ समझा नहीं. We'll just ignore the treatment, and they are very chilled out, so they conceive. Actually, the more knowledge you have now, it becomes a problem. So not going into the psychological and philosophical lecture, but just we'll go to the third. First was menstrual abnormalities, second was infertility, and third is hyperandrogenism. Why hyperandrogenism is so bad? Because testosterone is a male hormone. It's a male dominating hormone. Estrogen is a female dominating hormone. And testosterone is increasing in the female. The female actually starts to look like male. There is baldness of hair. There is hirsutism, beard growths. There is deposition of fat like males. There is hoarseness of voice. There is weight gain. So all these things doesn't happen in females, and these things are happening so rapidly. If you see such patients also who are having proper like PCOD from years and they are ignoring now, if you see them also now by face, you can if you have seen such patients now, You can recognize by face only that this patient is of PCOS and she's having too much testosterone in her body. No offense, but this is what it is. So the signs of androgen excess, I have discussed this, that a patient is having hirsutism, coarse dark hair. So this hair, where it occurs in the male pattern in androgen. So wherever males are having more hair, there, because testosterone is a male hormone. So chin, upper lip area, sternum area. Sternum area, girls don't have hair. Perioral region, that is around the nipples. This is also very important. Whenever you are checking for hirsutism, check the breast, and when you're checking the breast, around the breast, if there are lots of hair or if the hair is very thick and very big in size, so that means it is umbilical region also and sacral region also. And in the pubic region, upper thighs also, you'll get lots of hair. So next we are talking about acne. Testosterone is converted within the sebaceous gland to dihydrotestosterone. It is a potent androgen, and it causes overstimulation of the androgen receptors in the pilosebaceous unit, and it causes acne. So acne, yes, if the acne are worse, if the acne are too much, and if the patient is very concerned cosmetically, you should refer the patient to a dermatologist. That is okay. But only taking acne medicine and not the PCOS medicines, the acne will go, it will clear away. But the cause is there, na? The androgen is there. The acne are going to form again. How many times are you going to go to the dermatologist and take treatment? How many months are you going to take isotretinoin? And isotretinoin is actually contraindicated pre-conception. You shouldn't take isotretinoin, which is given by these dermatologists 2 years at least before conception. So we are going away from the topic, coming back to the topic now. Alopecia, as I said, thinning at the crown actually occurs, and frontal preservation, like in male pattern baldness, you can say. Acanthosis nigricans I mentioned. What is that? There is thick hyperpigmentation area actually in the flexure areas. Flexure is back of neck, axilla, inframammary creases, waist and joint. All these areas become proper black. Metabolic syndrome. Actually, when the patient is having PCOS, it is a metabolic syndrome. There's insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? As we saw the role of insulin. Insulin is there in the body, but to maintain the blood glucose level, that insulin is not sufficient, or that insulin is not acting that properly on the receptors. The receptors don't accept that insulin. As a result of which, there is insulin resistance even if there is insulin. And more insulin is produced. So, for the blood sugar to be controlled, more and more insulin is produced, as a result of which insulin production increases. And for lowering the blood sugar, lots of insulin has to be produced. That is insulin resistance. Dyslipidemia also occurs in PCOS because insulin is a hormone which is responsible for carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism. As a result of which dyslipidemia occurs. Hypertension, because obesity actually increases the risk of hypertension, and it is increased risk of cardiovascular manifestations and diabetes mellitus, as we discussed. Hair-in syndrome. This was actually used to be asked to us in Viva. Actually, this is more commonly seen than we actually think. The PCOS patients which we see in the OPD, most of them have this, but we still say PCOS. Hyperandrogenism, increased testosterone, all the signs and symptoms as I mentioned, alopecia would be there. Alopecia is actually one of the sign of hyperandrogenism. Honestly, I have not seen patients or female who are having like proper male type alopecia and coming. Most of the symptoms are acne and hirsutism only. Then there is insulin resistance, IR and insulin resistance, and acanthosis nigricans. So even though acanthosis nigricans is a symptom of hyperandrogenism, in hair-in syndrome, hyperandrogenism, other symptoms are present, but acanthosis nigricans should be present. Then only it is called hair-in syndrome. And like this, we see many patients in the OPD. We just don't know, but we see many patients actually. So now we are going to go into the proper history part. Now patient has walked in your OPD. what questions you're going to ask, how the history you're going to take. So history taking. So firstly you're going to ask her LMP. If her cycles are not regular, you're going to ask LLMP, that is LMP is last menstrual period, LLMP is last to last menstrual period. Also, you have to ask whether, because this PCOS history, right? Or any gynec history, also, you should ask whether the menses came on her own or she had to take any pills. In PCOS, if she is mentioning any pills, then you remember that even if she says, Array, I have regular menses, but if you should ask, have you taken a pill and after that it has become regular? Because many patients think that it is normal to take pills and have regular menses. No, you're having regular menses because of the pill. It's not normal. So this is important. Regular, irregular menses, period of amenorrhea, are going to ask. Scanty menses with or without occasional heavy menses, you're going to ask. And any symptoms you're going to ask during menstruation, during or before menstruation. Breast tenderness, breast painful, breast discharge, everything you're going to ask. And when they occur pre-menstrual. If all these things actually occur pre-menstrual, it is not of that much significant. Mood swings also you're going to ask. And all with duration, like for example irregular menses, she'll tell you I'm having irregular menses from 2 years. From the duration you come to know, okay, if the patient says it is only from 3 months, so you can say okay, I can treat this patient. But if the patient is saying I am having this since 5 years, so it becomes little bit yappy or kuch sadhya actually. So gain in weight, this is very important history actually, which we ignore actually. You should ask the food, exercise, stress, everything you should ask. Whether the patient is doing any dieting and still gaining weight, or patient is eating junk, then the patient is bound to gain weight. Exercise also you're going to ask, and buttocks and abdominal fat deposition, this you're going to see and also ask. Gain in weight also applies to thin. Gain in weight, for example, if the patient is previously she was 40 kilos and she gained 10 kilo weight and became 50 kilos. For you, when she enters first time in the OPD, you will feel that this patient is not obese. But when you ask her in detail, did you gain weight? Were you very thin previously and now you gain weight? So that is those are also the patients of PCOS. This actually we miss. Actually, if we see practically, we miss. We only ask gain in weight. Just notice this. We ask gain in weight only to the obese patient, not to the thin patients. Genetic connection, as I said, male wildness, infertility, and PCOS. Skin, you should ask whether the patient is taking any acne. You're going to see the patient is having acne, but you have to going to ask if the patient is having clear skin also. You're going to ask, okay, did you take any treatment in the past, or because the patient would be on treatment and patient would feel that those things are not related to this and will not tell you also if you don't go deep. Hirsutism, acanthosis, even warts, warts are actually because of HPV infection, that is human papilloma virus infection. But clinically, if you see, warts are more common in patients of PCOS or those patients who are having hormonal imbalance. So these things you are going to ask. And if married, obviously you are going to ask if the patient is having infertility, then you have to go into the causes. Along with PCOD, other causes can also be present. This is also very important. So go into depth of that causes also. Patient may have follicular block, fallopian tube block along with PCOD. So don't ignore that. That is one thing. And abortion. In patients of PCOS, actually, abortion also occurs more because, like I said, once in the blue moon ovulation occurs. But the corpus luteum is not that good, because you imagine that the follicle is not that good. Follicle only forms the corpus luteum, and so I said that was important, that the entire follicle is not out. That concept is important. The basics are very, very, very important. So this corpus luteum doesn't produce adequate amounts of progesterone, or even if they produce, it is out of phase. That is, if for example 100 nanograms of progesterone is needed today, only 20 nanograms will be produced. So this is what is known as out of phase. And so in the patients of PCOS, if you are giving treatment for hormonal stimulation, for follicular stimulation, if you are giving treatment for pregnancy, it is always advisable to give luteal support. What does luteal support means? Luteal support means patient should be given progesterone. Patient should be given HCG. So that depends on the patient also. So this is something extra information which I am giving, but which is very relevant actually. So now we are going into the examination part. So examination may, what you're going to do, you're going to first see whether the patient is obese. You're going to see the abdominal, you're going to see the buttocks obesity. You're going to ask the patient for acne. Face you're going to see, and orally you can ask her whether she is having acne on chest and back also. There would be scars which are visible. Acne would be there. When the acne has healed, they leave scars, so look for that also, and inquire whether they appear during a typical type of cycle. For example, most of the acne flare before menses. So, is there something like that? Just ask them. Hirsutism, you're going to check, or you can ask also to the patient. Acanthosis, as I said. Thyroid gland, you're going to see for enlargement. Because what happens now? When the patient is coming, you don't know whether she's having PCOS or not. And when you're doing examination, it should be top to bottom examination. There's actually a general gynec examination which you can do for any patient actually. Thyroid enlargement, you're going to ask the patient to swallow the saliva and see the movement of thyroid gland. If clinically it is not enlarged in the hormonal level, we are going to do TSH. That's it. If you feel that it is enlarged, then you should go for the entire thyroid profile. That is T3 and T4 should also be included. That is my protocol actually. You can do PFT in routine patients also. Breast, you're going to check for hirsutism also and for galactorrhea also. Why for galactorrhea? Hyperprolactinemia actually causes galactorrhea, either watery or milky secretion from the breast. So here, when the patient is having hyperprolactinemia, so treat that is very important. So you have to treat, because only if you treat PCOS and you don't treat the hyperprolactinemia, then the patient would not get menses. Blood pressure is important because PCOS causes hypertension actually, because of the obesity and all the associated factors, and also because of insulin. So routine checking of blood pressure is important. The patient, even if the patient is a 30 years lady, mostly below 30 years I would recommend to check the blood pressure at every visit, but if she's above 30 years, you should check the blood pressure. And psychological, as you say, you just talk to the patient and see whether she's stress eater. Sometimes you are telling the patient everything, how to lose weight, what to eat and everything. She is listening to you, she wants to do, but when she goes home she has so much stress and she's a stress eater. So just ask her all these things and ask them how they feel about their own appearance. This is very important actually. So we have completed so much. We have come to actually the Rotterdam's criteria. This Rotterdam's criteria is actually one of my favorite criteria. This was actually formulated in 2003, which is actually a recent criteria because it is only 17 years old actually. So you're going to get your first questions answer over here, whether sonographic diagnosis is enough for PCOS. Actually, it's not enough. That is the sad truth. Then you say, what does this mean? The sonography diagnosis, PCOS, what are you saying, lady? No, listen to me. According to Rotterdam's criteria, which is actually a criteria which is used all over the world, it was formulated in a conference in Europe, and this is the standard criteria which everyone uses. So, if the patient is having any of the two of these three factors, then she is having PCOS. The first is oligomenorrhea, as we know, and or anovulation. Anovulation, how you are going to come to know? You will come to know only by follicular study. So mostly when we are labeling the patient having PCOS, we don't do follicular study of unmarried patients. So mostly this anovulation is not much in consideration. We see oligomenorrhea only. Second is hyperandrogenism, clinical and biochemical. So clinically all the signs are there. Biochemically, if you do serum testosterone level, it is increased, then that is PCOS. And polycystic ovaries on USG. So if that patient who came to you has only polycystic ovary, says that her menses are ekdam proper, if she is married, you do follicle study also and you see normal, nice, mastographian follicle. And if you tell the patient to have intercourse, she will conceive also. And no sign of clinical, no hirsute, no acne, serum testosterone within range. Then that means the patient is not having PCOS yet. But she might get PCOS in the later life if she takes the causative factors. This we are going to review in the Ayurvedic section. I'm going to explain beautifully how this is correlated. But for now, you just remember that these three are the criterias. Along with these three, two are that's enough. At times, we see on patient only does the sonography, and on sonography, nothing is there. And this is there. Patient is having scanty menses, patient is having acne and all. So, in such criteria, what you are supposed to do? You do the blood test, you do the biochemical test, you do FSH, LH, and everything. And if you see that it is suggesting a PCOS, so even if the sonography is not suggesting, the patient is having PCOS. And if the patient is untreated like that, within a period of time, the sonography will also suggest that patient is having PCOS. Little bit difficult, little bit, I think it is bouncer, but I had to say this because this is very, very important clinical applicability actually. Now, imaging of the polycystic ovaries. So, which USG are going to suggest? If the patient is married and the patient is obese, you suggest transvaginal sonography, pelvis transvaginal sonography. Mostly in married patients, we suggest TVS only. Only when the patient is adolescent, that is not married and virgin, at that time you can suggest transabdominal sonography. Imaging is very good in transvaginal rather than transabdominal. So whenever available, do TVS only of pelvis. So what are the things which you will see in the sonography? Are greater than 12 small multiple peripheral follicles of 2 to 9 diameter or enlarged ovaries. So mind you, any one of the impression is written or anyone you see, that means it is polycystic ovaries. You know the ovaries become bulky, the volume is greater than 10 centimeter cube. So in many sonologists, they don't write the volume, some of them write also. So you should know, when you know the normal volume is 10, you can get patients who are having ovarian volume like 12 of one ovary, one is 15. Or then you can say that the PCOS is not that much. But at such times, you see, I've seen patient with ovarian volume of 30. I've also seen the patient with ovarian volume of 42. So when you see such things, you're like, my goodness. And that, if you know this, you can explain to the patient the intensity of it. Only one ovary is sufficient to diagnose PCOS. Actually, this was previously they used to give like this impression, like right ovarian PCOS, but there's nothing like right ovarian PCOS and left ovarian. Once you're having PCOS, it's PCOS. If you're having PCOS, maybe the PCOS has developed in the right ovary, but eventually it will happen in the left ovary also, because the center, hypothalamus, pituitary, it is one only, right? So that doesn't mean that doesn't mean, because many people are confused between that also. So that, and even it is confusing for the patient actually. So blood investigation is what you are going to give: FSH, LH, prolactin, TSH. These are to be done on day 2 or day 3 of the menses. If the patient is having amenorrhea, you can either give withdrawal to the patient and get her menses and do on day 2nd. BSL fasting PP. This is very important because PCOS and insulin resistance is very like correlated. So you should do HbA1c, lipid profile because it is affected, and if needed, serum testosterone is not done in every patient. I have hardly done serum testosterone in patient because this is a clinical diagnosis. Only when the sonography is not showing PCOS, and this occurs in very less patients, and all two criteria are there, then only you're going. Even insulin fasting is not done. Why this is not done? Because it doesn't give any extra information. All these things you can come to know by BSL, HbA1c. So these tests actually doesn't matter. There is also a test in which we do insulin level after giving glucose load, and then we do the insulin level after 2 hours, but clinically it's not needed actually. These are the basic tests. In this you'll find that LH level is more. LH and FSH ratio, that LH would be suppose 9, FSH would be 3, that is the ratio would come 3:1. So that is PCOS. Prolactin, if normal, it's good. If the prolactin is high, then give the patient capgolin tablet, that you can give for 4 weeks, then the patient prolactin will decrease. TSH, if the patient is having, at times patient we see hypothyroidism along with PCOS, so you have to treat. And BSL fasting PP, HbA1c, if the patient is having, Mostly the patients are in the pre-diabetic range or just borderline. Then you ask the patient and you can convince the patient that see, this diabetes is also developing, so you have to take treatment, you have to follow diet. So this is to convince the patient actually. And lipid profile, because lipids are actually total cholesterol level increases, even triglycerides increases. So all these, if these are increasing at an early age in a girl, so you imagine by 40 years the patient will be like having many cardiac complications. So this is actually not only for reproduction but for the patient as a whole, because we want to think about whole the patient. Serum estrogen and DHEAs are hardly done, so no, I'm not going to go in details. Even though estrogen is so important, it is hardly done in PCOS because FSH and LH are enough. The sex hormone binding globulin level are done in some labs, some people do it, but this is also not needed. Even serum testosterone, I've given the levels, and insulin, I'm not going to go in detail. So now what is this? This is subjective criteria. So as I said, quantity of bleeding. So this is like our normal over here should be moderate. So if the patient is having 1 to 2 pads per day only, and that also not getting soaked properly, that is scanty menses. The patient is having spotting, that has 0 grade, and moderate is 2 to 3 pads per day, and excessive is 4 to 5 pads per day. So over here, why the grades are given, you can keep these charts in handy so that you don't have to like every time write scanty menses, spotting. You can see directly write the grade 0, and when the patient comes next time, if or after 2 months or so, and you ask how, she said now I'm not having spotting, I'm having scanty menses. So you can change the grade to 1. So that follow up would be concise and you can maintain it. So similarly of interval of menses, this is like that you can maintain actually. So even for ovarian volume there is this. One more thing I forgot to mention is that there are patients of PCOS who are having ovarian volume hardly 9 and 8 also, and they are having PCOD. So that means the ovarian volume is not raised, but they would have multiple small follicles. So if the treatment is not given, that will be raised. So in such patients, you can be sure that we can treat such patients. But greater than 20, then it becomes a little bit difficult. And hormonal levels also charts you can maintain before and after. And this actually, if such charts you show to the patient, now patient is very impressed actually. And this is the follow-up chart. You can mention this before treatment, after treatment, like that you can mention, or you can put the column and you can put the dates so that it becomes concise. You don't have to carry so many papers. There's something I only devise, so you can use it actually. It's very handy. I must say, if you feed on computer also, it's very handy. In one single data sheet, you can fill up to 100 patients, 150 patients. Very concise. So further complications now we are going to talk actually. This is actually the last topic. Yeah, we have come to the end actually. We have discussed a lot till now and we have come to the end. So what is abnormal lipid profile? There is elevated total cholesterol, triglycerides, LDL is increased, and HDL increases. So all things which occur, that have occurred actually. This is something very very important. Why PCOS is to be taken not only as a reproductive disease but as a whole. An increased incidence of hypertension over time that approach almost 40% by pre-menopausal age. So in patients of PCOS, they have increased incidence of hypertension by 40%. That's a huge thing. You're having hypertension, so many things occur after that. You're having cardiac problems, you're having ischemia, you can have stroke. My goodness. And all because of PCOS, which can be treated, which can at least be controlled. So this is very important. So that's why whoever, if you're having some friend or if you're having someone, if you get a patient of PCOS and she's little bit irregular in her treatment, tell her this. Not just to increase your patient, no, for herself, for her health. So there is greater prevalence of cardiovascular disease, sevenfold increase in the risk of myocardial infarction. So that is all implied only. Endometrial cancer. Why this occurs? Unopposed estrogen. As I said, progesterone is not there, only estrogen is there. Only estrogen proliferates the endometrium, as a result of which it can lead rise to endometrial cancer if such things continue for large periods of time, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, then this can cause endometrial cancer. So now the consequences of PCOS. Short term, as you all know, obesity is there, infertility, irregular menses, hirsutism, acne, sleep apnea, yeah, seen in some patients, depression. Long term, we see DM, diabetic endometrial carcinoma, CVS, and also hypertension. So this is actually the end of presentation. I hope you understood all the things. As I said in the beginning, I just want to do one quick topic, and this is actually related to the Ayurvedic part which we are going to do tomorrow. And remember, I said something about the Rotterdam's criteria and told you don't go in detail now, and I'll tell you something regarding that. So if you're attentive, I'll just take this, okay? So I'll just read this once and I'll just tell you what it is. In patients with features of clinical, biochemical, and endocrinal abnormalities, which are typically found in PCOS, but still there may be no evidence of polycystic ovaries on ultrasonography. So, as I said, the Rotterdam's criteria, if on a patient comes with, if your patient comes, okay, see the scenario. Patient is saying, Doctor, I'm not having menses, I'm having amenorrhea since 2 months. And doctor, see this hair and all, see this acne, see I'm gaining weight, am I having PCOS? And you're like, yes, I think you're having PCOS, but let's do a sonography and get checked. The two parameters, oligomenorrhea is there, hyperandrogenism is there. Patient does the sonography, comes to you the next day, doctor, I'm not having PCOD. Doctor, then what is the cause? Then you're like, Arre bapre, this patient is not having PCOD. Maybe the patient is having, hyperprolactinemia, or maybe she's having hyperthyroidism. And you then what at this time, this happens to all of us, this has happened to all of us. Do the investigation. Do the hormone parameters which I said, FSH, LH, TSH, prolactin, BSL, everything you come to know. In that, if you see that prolactin is mildly elevated, TSH normal, FSH, LH proper picture of PCOS, then you say to the patient, then this is PCOS. Or even if the patient is beyond understanding, sometimes the patient don't understand, they don't understand so much, and you say, don't worry, I'll treat you, and give the treatment of PCOS only. So this is very important because in clinical practice we see some patients, I'll not say many patients, but 1-2 patients we'll see like this in a month, and we don't understand. And what happens now, we go to other diagnosis where the diagnosis is actually in front of us, and this is a googly actually. On the other hand, PCOS identification at USG can exist in normal fertile women without any apparent clinical, biochemical, or endocrinological features of PCOS. I hope you're not getting confused. It can happen that the woman is having PCOS on USG. The patient will come, doctor, I'm having PCOS. I did this sonography actually by another doctor, and I just came to you. I didn't go to that doctor. Doctor, please give me the treatment for PCOS. When you ask the patient, when you examine the patient, you take the history, everything negative. Nothing she is having, no acne. No, she is thin patient, aram se 50 kilo patient. No weight gain, no hirsutism. Normal menses, no pill intake, kuch nahi. The patient she may be this also, she may have conceived also. She's not having infertility also. And when you do hormonal levels also, you will see the hormonal levels are not exactly normal. Like LH is to FSH ratio is not 3 is to 1, or it might be 2 is to 1. Like for example, it may be 6, LH would be, and FSH would be 3 or something like that. Or FSH would be 2.5 and LH would be 6, something like gray area we call actually. Both these scenarios are gray area which are seen in practice actually. But in such patients, when the sonography is giving PCOS appearance, in such patient, we start the treatment. If you don't want to give allopathic treatment, you can give Ayurvedic treatment in such patients, and emphasize with the patient on diet and lifestyle. Because if the patient does follow a healthy diet and lifestyle, the probability of treatment in this patient increases. The patient PCOS will not progress because she is not having any symptoms now. Randomly, she may have done the sonography and she found this. patient's symptoms will not increase, and so she would be saved from having the lifelong hassle of PCOS. Just explain to her this and start treatment. Don't leave such patients. So these are the two scenarios which I said. The first scenario is known as occult PCOS, which we are going to discuss again tomorrow. So the answer to your question, when the patient comes, "Ki doctor, I am having PCOS." So does that mean the patient is having confirmed PCOS? No, because other two parameters can be negative. So examination is necessary. Does that mean the patient is confirmed not having PCS? No, that is also not true, because if one of the parameter is there, then that patient is having PCOS. So does that mean the patient may be having PCOS? So the answer to your question is, when the patient comes with a sonography report, that means the person is maybe having PCOS and it's not a confirmed thing. So this is something which you have to keep in mind. These are actually the gems of practice, actually, which you, after you see so many patients, you come to know. So this was actually the end of today's session. I really enjoyed today's session. I really liked it. I hope you also liked it. And whatever things you don't understand, just rewind it, listen to it, read about it. If you have any queries, you can ask in our group, and we'll get it sorted. Don't worry. Actually, when you study PCOS, you study entire hormone system. You almost gynecology is revised. That is the beauty of this topic. So just to summarize, what did we learn? We did the introduction, prevalence. We understood the basic physiology. We understood the pathophysiology of the disease, signs and symptoms. We understood all in detail. We understood what all happens. Gynec history taking, yeah, examination, investigations. We saw the complications also. So thank you so much everyone for staying till the end. I wish you have a great day. So till then, just keep reading, and if you have any doubts, you can ask in the group. Bye for now.